Tonight we slip through the damp, pre-dawn mist of a world lit only by fire and moonlight. You're not a knight or a lord. You're an apprentice, bundled in coarse wool, your breath pluming in the frigid air as you shuffle from the attic dormitory towards the heart of a sleeping medieval inn. The main hall below is a cavern of shadows, smelling of last night's smoke, spilled ale, and the earthy scent of rushes strewn across the floor. From the stable, a horse stamps softly. From the hearth, a single log collapses into embers with a tired sigh. But your destination isn't the kitchen, not yet. Your first, most critical task awaits outside, in the chill silence before the world wakes. The inn is still, but it's a pregnant stillness, holding its breath. Every sack of grain, every barrel of ale, every joint of salted meat in the larder represents a calculated investment. But the most volatile, living asset is about to make itself heard from behind a wattle and daub wall. Your survival, and the inn's, hinges on a simple, daily mystery. Did everything that went into the coop last night come out again this morning? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Because the reality is, in this world, a missing chicken isn't just dinner. It's a hole in your ledger, a potential dispute with a traveler, or a sign of a lurking fox or a light-fingered guest. Frankly, in the cutthroat economy of a medieval way station, you probably won't survive this life if you can't keep a proper count. Now, dim the lights, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your feet know the creaky boards by heart, avoiding the third step from the bottom that groans like a tortured soul. You pass the silent, hulking shapes of sleeping travelers wrapped in their cloaks on benches, their rhythmic snores part of the inn's nocturnal soundtrack. You grab a lantern, its feeble candle casting a wobbly dome of light that makes the shadows leap and dance. The heavy iron key to the back door is cold in your hand. As you turn it, the rasp of the lock is obscenely loud. Then, you're outside. The cold hits you like a wall, a sharp, clean contrast to the fog of the hall. The sky is a deep violet, a single bright star hanging over the thatched roof of the hen house. This isn't a flimsy shed. This is a fortress. Its walls are thick, its small shuttered window barred with oak slats, its door secured with an iron hasp and stout pin. The inn's chickens are more than egg layers. They are a slow-motion bank account, a source of fresh meat, feather-stuffed pillows, and bargaining power. Losing one is like dropping a silver penny through a crack in the floorboards. You can hear them already, a soft, questioning cluck, the rustle of dry straw, the scratch of claws on hard-packed earth. They know dawn is coming. They also know the routine. You pause, listening beyond the coop. The medieval night is not quiet. It's an orchestra of potential threats. An owl hoots from the edge of the forest, a perfect feathered assassin. A fox might be a phantom rustle in the hedge. But the more insidious threat is two-legged. A hungry guest, a wandering beggar, or even a rival innkeeper might see a plump hen as a prize worth any risk. The law, in the form of murky local customs and manor court rulings, is clear. Theft of livestock is a serious crime. But out here, in the dark, the law is what you can enforce with your own eyes and a sturdy cudgel. This daily count is your first audit, your proof of security or your evidence of loss. You pull the pin from the hasp, the iron cold enough to stick to your skin for a second. The door opens with a groan. The smell wafts out, warm, dense, a mix of dry dust, feathers, droppings, and the unique, slightly sweet odor of the birds themselves. As the lantern light spills in, a dozen beady eyes reflect back at you. Some birds shift on their perches, a brave one lets out a low balk. They are a motley crew, scruffy brown hens, a proud red rooster with a magnificent comb, a few younger pullets still growing into their feathers. To a modern eye, they'd look scrawny, perhaps even pathetic. To you, they are a catalogue of value. That red rooster is the guardian, his morning crow the inn's alarm clock. The old broody hen in the corner is the steady, reliable egg producer. The two plumpest hens are the walking feast, reserved for a paying group or a major holiday. Your job, before the first pot is hung over the fire, is to know each one, not by name, but by state. Are they all here? Are they healthy? Did they lay? The fate of the day's commerce begins with this feathery head count. The hinge's groan was your signature, your announcement of arrival, and now a deeper, more immediate presence makes itself known. A shadow detaches itself from the deeper gloom near the main inn door, a silhouette solidified by authority and a woolen cloak. This is Martin, the innkeeper. He doesn't stride, he manifests, his approach silent on the dew-slick cobbles until he's beside you, his own lantern held high to cast its judgmental light into the coop. You feel his gaze more than see it, sweeping over the flock before settling on you. He is a walking ledger, a man for whom every chicken is a column in a mental account book, every egg a debit or credit in the grand, precarious balance of hospitality. For him, the morning count isn't a chore, it's a sacred ritual, the foundational act upon which the entire edifice of the day will be built. His survival, the reputation of his inn, and the thin margin between profit and loss all hang in this damp, feather-dusted air. He doesn't speak at first. He observes. He's comparing the scene before him to the immutable record in his mind from last night's final check. You can almost hear the internal calculations whirring. His face, leathery and lined from years of squinting at accounts and soothing drunken quarrels, is impassive. This is a man who has seen barrels of good wine turn to vinegar, seen travelers promise payment in exotic coins that turned out to be lead, seen a summer hailstorm flatten the kitchen garden just before a festival. He trusts nothing until it has been counted, weighed, and recorded. The chickens are his most unpredictable stock, and thus they require the most vigilant accounting. A mainstream historical fact here. The innkeeper was a pivotal, licensed figure in medieval travel, required by laws like the assize of bread and ale to maintain fair measures and prices, a duty that began with knowing his own inventory down to the last egg. He finally grunts, a sound that could mean anything. "Well? Let's have the air," he says, his voice a low rumble like a cart over gravel. He's not asking for a number yet. He's asking for the state of things. You step fully into the coop, the straw crunching under your worn shoes. The rooster, affronted by the double intrusion, lets out a preemptive half-crow that ends in a strangled gurgle. You begin the slow process of looking, really looking. It's not just about noses. You're checking for the broody hen who's been sitting on a clutch of eggs. Is she still there, or has she been spooked? You're looking for signs of scuffles. A flurry of feathers in the straw could mean a rat got in, or the birds fought, which could mean stress or illness. You note the water trough, still full from last evening, and the scatter of grain you left. Has it been eaten, or is there a sick bird off its feed? Martin watches you work, his eyes missing nothing. He points a thick, calloused finger towards a corner. The speckled one. She's favoring a foot. You look, and sure enough, one of the younger hens is standing awkwardly. You'd missed it. He hasn't. This is his domain, every creature and crock in it a line in the complex story of his business. Some medieval husbandry guides, borrowing from ancient Roman writers like Columella, suggested that the ideal innkeeper should have a rooster with specific plumage colors to ensure a healthy flock, and that whispering secrets to your hens would make them lay better eggs, advice Martin would likely dismiss with a snort, though he might secretly have a preferred method of talking to them when no one was around. "Start the count," he orders, stepping back to give you room but positioning himself so he can see every bird. He will count silently in parallel, a living audit. This is where the real pressure begins. The method is simple, brutal in its simplicity. You have to visually identify and acknowledge each bird. You can't just glance and guess. Some might be hiding in the nesting boxes. The rooster might be puffing himself up, blocking two smaller hens behind him. You might count one twice if it darts from one side to the other. Historians still argue whether the efficiency of such daily, small-scale agricultural accounting in places like inns and manor yards provided a practical foundation for the later development of double-entry bookkeeping in Italian merchant cities, or if they were entirely separate tracks of economic thought. As you point to the first hen, a sturdy brown layer, and murmur one, you are participating in a primitive but essential form of data collection that kept the local economy ticking. 1. You say, your finger tracking the sturdy brown hen as she pecks disinterestedly at a piece of stray straw. Martin gives a minute, almost imperceptible nod. Your pointing finger moves to the next. 2. This is the broody hen, a ball of indignant feathers in her nesting box, her beady eye fixed on you with profound disapproval. She doesn't move, a solid, grumpy unit. Good. 3. The young pullet with the bad foot, still in the corner. You note her location mentally, she'll need looking at later. The lantern light warms the dust motes you've stirred into a frantic dance. The world has shrunk to this small, smelly, critically important space. The inn, the sleeping guests, the road beyond, all of it fades into a distant hum. There is only the tally, the feathery bodies, and the keeper's silent, verifying presence. You continue, a slow cadence in the quiet. 4, 5. 2 younger birds huddled together. You have to shift a loose plank leaning against the wall to see behind it. 6. A black hen with a missing toe. A veteran of many battles, perhaps with a rat or a weasel. She's a distinct marker, easy to spot. This is part of the unspoken system. Unique identifiers matter. The rooster, feeling the count's momentum building towards him, decides to reassert his dignity. He fluffs his neck feathers, lets out a proper, full-throated crow that shatters the dawn's quiet, and struts directly into your line of sight. 7. You say firmly, not letting his theatrics break your rhythm. He seems almost disappointed as you move past him. The process is tactile, sensory. You don't just see them, you hear the subtle differences in their clucks. The dry scratch of their feet on the hard-packed earth. You smell the particular tang of their droppings mixed with the earthy aroma of the oat straw. You feel the cling of down feathers in the air, catching on your woolen sleeves. This is inventory with a pulse, with attitude. A hen squawks and flutters to a higher perch as you get too close, disrupting 2 others. You have to pause, let them settle, and restart your mental tally from the last solid point. Did you count the one that just flew up? Yes, she was number 8. The one she disturbed was 9. You lock them in. You move to the nesting boxes, wooden crates filled with straw. This is where the other half of the morning's wealth is held. Carefully, you reach in beside the broody hen. She pecks at your hand, a harmless but sharp warning, and feel around. Your fingers close over smooth, warm ovals. You withdraw them gently. 2 eggs from this box. One is still faintly steaming in the chill air, laid moments ago. You place them carefully in the small wicker basket hooked over your arm. The plink as they settle is a sweet sound. Each egg is a tiny currency. A traveler might buy one soft-boiled for his breakfast. A dozen could be traded to the baker for yesterday's leftover loaves. They could be used in the kitchen for a custard or to enrich a pottage for a wealthy merchant's supper. Each box yields its treasure. 1, 2, sometimes 3 eggs. You note which boxes are empty. A consistently empty box from a particular hen is a data point for Martin. It could mean she's past her prime, or sick, or has decided to become a floor layer, hiding her eggs in some dark corner of the yard, a frustrating habit that turns the morning count into a scavenger hunt. You find a total of 9 eggs. A decent haul. Not a feast day haul, but a solid, everyday number. The basket has a satisfying weight. You glance at Martin. He's been counting the eggs in tandem, his lips moving silently. He looks from the basket to the flock, his mind clearly cross-referencing. 9 eggs from this many birds, it's within expected parameters. He gives another of his grunting nods. The egg count is logged in his mental ledger. Now, back to the birds. You've counted to 12. You know there should be 15. Your eyes sweep the coop, probing the shadows. The lantern light isn't perfect. A dusty beam in the far corner hides a shadowy form. You step closer, straw catching on your foot. 13. You announce, spotting the shy white hen who always hides there. 14. The other black hen, sister to the missing toe veteran, perched above the door. Where is 15? The last should be the old, nearly bald hen, a reliable layer despite her mangy appearance. You don't see her. You take a slow step back, trying to view the entire space as a whole. Martin's presence behind you feels heavier, a pressure. The count is incomplete. The ledger does not balance. The simple arithmetic of feather and fodder has hit its first, inevitable snag. The mystery of the missing 15th hen now hangs between you, in the suddenly tense, feather-flecked air. The silence after you stop counting is different now. It's no longer the quiet of routine, it's the quiet of a problem unsolved. The number hangs in the air, 14. 14 where there should be 15. Martin doesn't sigh, doesn't curse. He simply steps past you, his bulk filling the coop doorway, and his own lantern sweeps over the scene with a new, forensic intensity. The morning ritual has abruptly shifted from inventory to investigation. This is where the quaint daily count collides with the gritty realities of medieval life. A missing chicken isn't an abstract loss, it's a hole in the food supply, a breach in security, a potential domino that could topple a day's profits. The bald one, Martin states, confirming your own suspicion. His voice is flat. He's already running through possibilities, a mental checklist of disaster. You both re-enter the coop, this time not as counters, but as examiners. You check the corners you've already checked, probing the straw with your feet. Could she be buried, sick or dead? No. You check the nesting boxes again, in case she's crammed herself into one. Nothing. Your eyes go to the walls, the roof, the barred window. A predator? A fox or a weasel could squeeze through a shockingly small gap, but they'd leave signs, a scatter of feathers, a smear of blood, a panic disorder in the straw. The coop is orderly, just as you left it. The pin on the door was secure. You remember lifting it, the solid iron weight of it. That leaves 2 broad, unsettling categories, human error or human theft. Did you latch the run gate proper yesterday evening? Martin asks, his gaze fixed on you now. Not an accusation, yet. A procedural question. The chickens have a small, fenced outdoor run attached to the coop for daytime. You mentally replay the previous evening, the herding of the birds from run to coop as dusk fell, the slide of the wooden gate's bar, the check you gave it. You're sure? You nod. Fastened solid. He believes you, or at least accepts your statement for now. He moves to the coop's small, shuttered window, running his fingers along the edge of the wooden bar that holds it shut from the inside. It's firm. No pry marks. A mainstream historical fact. Theft from city shops and rural homesteads was rampant in the Middle Ages, and the punishment could be severe, but catching the thief in the act or with the goods was notoriously difficult. An inn, with its constant flow of strangers, was a uniquely vulnerable place for petty pilfering. You both step back out into the grey dawn light. The run is empty, of course. You scan the ground. The earth is churned and scratched by a dozen chicken feet, But there, near the fence line where it meets the woodpile, is that a stray, downy white feather? You point. Martin crouches, a surprisingly fluid movement for a man of his build. He picks up the feather, studies it, then his eyes trace an invisible path from the fence to the dark space beneath the woodpile. He stands, walks over, and with a grunt, heaves a log aside. Nothing but spiders and pill bugs. But the forensic trail is a clue. A bird taken by a fox would likely have left more feathers, a struggle. This single feather, caught on a splintered fence post, suggests a swift, startled capture. A bird plucked from the run, perhaps yesterday before it was shut in? Or, your eyes follow the fence line to where it nearly touches the rear wall of the stable. A gap, barely wide enough for a skinny man or a determined child. Something you heard a traveling tinker say once, that some thieves would use a drugged grain, like henbane seeds mixed with oats, to stupefy watchdogs or even poultry, making them easy to snatch without a sound. It sounded like a tavern tale then, but now, staring at that gap, it feels less fantastical. Did someone lure the old, slow hen with a tempting treat? Martin is thinking the same thing. His jaw tightens. The loss of the chicken is one thing. The violation, the idea that someone under his roof, a paying guest or a wandering scoundrel, might have dared it, is another. It strikes at the heart of the inn's covenant, shelter and safety in exchange for coin. Could have been a hawk, you offer, a weak attempt to fill the accusatory silence. You glance up at the lightening sky. A goshawk could take a full-grown hen, carrying it off to a tree. It would have been noisy, though. The rooster would have sounded the alarm. Martin just shoots you a look that says don't be simple. He pockets the feather. The count, for now, is final. 14 birds, 9 eggs. The ledger has a discrepancy. Historians still argue whether the daily, petty losses like this in medieval businesses were seen as a simple cost of doing business, an expected shrinkage, or if each one was a deeply personal affront and a serious financial blow that could alter a week's planning. Watching Martin's face, you're leaning toward the latter. The mystery isn't solved, but the immediate accounting is over. The sun is finally cresting the forest, turning the mist golden. The inn must wake. The missing hen is now a hidden entry in the day's ledger, a debt owed by the world, and Martin will not forget it. With the unresolved absence of the bald hen hanging over you both like a ghost debt, Martin's focus snaps back to the present with the force of a slamming ledger. The count, however imperfect, is the bedrock. You can't halt the day for a single missing fowl, not when a dozen guests will soon be clamoring for breakfast and the road beckons to new travelers. The numbers you have, 14 birds, 9 eggs, are the raw material from which the entire machinery of the day will be forged. You follow Martin back into the inn's main hall, which is now stirring with life. A servant is banking up the central fire, the smoke curling up towards the blackened rafters. A traveler stretches, his joints popping like kindling. The smell of last night's stale rushes mixes with the promise of new bread from the kitchen. Your basket of eggs feels suddenly heavier, a tangible capital. Martin stations himself near the trestle table that serves as his administrative desk, a scarred plank of oak littered with a wax tablet, a stylus, a small brass balance, and a few worn coins. He doesn't sit. He plants his hands on the table and looks from the basket in your hands to the mental image of his larder. Right, he says, the word a full stop on the mystery of the missing hen. 9 eggs. The wayfarers get pottage, thickened with 2 of those. The merchant and his man, they'll pay for eggs. Soft-boiled, 2 each. That's 4. His finger jabs the air as he allocates your morning's treasure. That leaves 3. 1 goes to the baker for yesterday's loaf he's discounting. 2 we keep back. 1 for the kitchen if the Lord's steward comes by unexpectedly, 1 for the sick child down the lane if her mother brings us the mending. His eyes narrow. The pullet with the foot. She's off her feed. If she's not right by noon, she's tomorrow's stewing hen. We'll get one more meal from her than we would from a healthy layer. This is the barnyard barter system in real time, a fluid economy where livestock and their products are a living currency. The chickens aren't just animals, they are a spectrum of liquidity. The eggs are small change, used for immediate transactions and minor comforts. The healthy layers are mid-level bonds, producing that small change reliably. The old or injured birds are capital being liquidated, converted from a declining asset into immediate sustenance or a favor owed. Martin is conducting a brutal, pragmatic form of triage, and his decisions in these few moments will dictate the social and economic interactions of the entire morning. You are witnessing the medieval equivalent of a day trader adjusting his portfolio at the opening bell. But here the commodities cluck and scratch. You nod, absorbing the orders. The 2 eggs for the merchant are a premium service, a mark of his status. The egg for the baker is a supply chain deal, ensuring a steady flow of bread without cash-changing hands. The egg held in reserve for the steward is a political investment, a small bribe of freshness to keep authority sweet. The egg for the sick child is community banking, a deposit of goodwill that might yield returned mending, local gossip, or future loyalty. Every allocation is a strategic move. Some manorial records show that eggs were sometimes used to pay portions of rent or tithes, especially from poorer tenants, making them a formal, albeit fragile, part of the feudal economic pyramid. Your 9 eggs are about to circulate through the local economy like tiny, nutritious coins. You carry the basket into the kitchen, a hot, chaotic room where a massive cauldron of pottage, a thick soup of grains, vegetables, and yesterday's scraps, already bubbles over the fire. The cook, a woman with arms like seasoned oak, takes the basket from you with a practiced glance. 9, she grunts. You confirm. Without another word, she begins the conversion. 2 eggs are cracked and whisked into a bowl, then stirred into the pottage to enrich it for the common travelers. 4 are set gently into a small pot of water already warming at the fire's edge, the merchant's breakfast. 1 is placed aside on a shelf, the baker's egg. The remaining 2 go into a small crock on a high shelf, the reserved capital. The transaction is seamless. The count has been physically transformed into menu items and social leverage. Historians still argue whether this hyperlocal, goods-based economy was more resilient or more fragile than a cash-based one. It certainly required a formidable memory and a keen sense of social balance, skills Martin possesses in abundance. As the first hungry travelers begin to shuffle towards the trestle tables, the value of your pre-dawn count is about to be consumed, 1 spoonful and 1 soft-boiled egg at a time. The hall transforms from a sleepy cavern into a chamber of orchestrated clamor. Benches scrape, voices rise in a murmur of morning greetings and complaints about stiff backs, and the smell of the pottage, now enriched with those 2 precious eggs, begins to dominate the space. You are no longer just the counter. You are the server, the intermediary between Martin's mental ledger and the physical satisfaction of his customers. You carry wooden bowls of the steaming pottage to the tables, your eyes subtly assessing the clients. The wayfarers, a term for the common travelers, perhaps a peddler with his pack, a pilgrim with his staff and scallop shell badge, a pair of laborers seeking work, receive their bowls with nods or grunted thanks. The pottage is hearty, filling, a direct product of the morning's egg count. Its slight richness, the faint yellow sheen from the yolks, is a tiny luxury, a marker that this inn is prosperous enough to bolster its basic fare. It's a silent advertisement. Then comes the merchant. He sits with his clerk at a smaller table, slightly apart. He has already counted his own money pouch, his fingers deft. His breakfast is an event. You bring the pot of hot water, now removed from the fire, and place it before him with a clean linen cloth. Inside, the 4 eggs rest like pale stones. You provide a small wooden cup of coarse salt. This is service. This is why he pays a premium for his lodging. He doesn't just get food, he gets a performance of abundance and care, a performance funded directly by the chicken count. As he taps the first shell with his spoon, you see the soft, runny yolk spill out. He dips a piece of trencher bread, a stale, thick slice that serves as both plate and utensil, into it with satisfaction. That yolk represents 1/40th of the morning's total avian output. His meal consumes nearly half of the day's tradable egg currency. It's a stark lesson in medieval supply chain management. A single high-status customer can redirect a significant portion of your daily resources. You watch the exchange with the baker. He arrives not at the front door, but through the kitchen's rear entrance, his arms dusted with a fine powder of flour. He carries a wrapped loaf, yesterday's, but still good. He and the cook exchange few words. She hands him the single, reserved egg. He holds it up to the light from the kitchen window, checking for hairline cracks, then pockets it with a nod. The transaction is complete. No coin clinks. The ledger in Martin's head, and now in yours, notes the trade: 1 egg, asset, for 1 loaf of bread, incoming asset. The bread will be used for the traveler's trenches or for the midday meal. The baker will use the egg, perhaps in his own family's meal, or add it to a batch of dough for a wealthier client. The economy turns, greased by the product of your hens. And then there is the social calculus. Later in the morning, the woman from down the lane arrives, her face pinched with worry. She carries a bundle, linen shirts that need darning. She doesn't come to the front, she hovers at the kitchen threshold. The cook, without being asked, retrieves one of the 2 eggs from the high shelf crock. She places it in the woman's hand, closing her fingers over it. "For the little one," she says softly. The woman's eyes glisten. She nods, tucks the egg safely into her own basket, and leaves the mending. The egg, as a potential source of nourishment for a sick child, has a value that transcends barter. It's a strategic investment in community, in loyalty. That woman will speak well of the inn. She will bring her mending here first. Her husband might offer help during the harvest. The egg has purchased goodwill, a currency as vital as silver in the close-knit, precarious world of a medieval village. Historians still argue whether this communal support was a genuine safety net or a form of subtle social control, binding the poorer to the marginally better off through cycles of obligation. As you watch the woman hurry away, you see only relief, and a debt incurred. By mid-morning, the direct products of the count have been consumed, traded, or invested. The merchant is on the road, his belly full of yolk. The wayfarers have licked their bowls clean. The baker's bread is on the table. The reserved egg for the steward remains, a tiny insurance policy. The pullet with the bad foot is isolated in a small crate with water and a handful of grain. Her fate will be decided by the next count. And the ghost of the bald hen? She is now a line item loss, a subtraction that Martin will factor into his broader calculations for the week. Her absence means 1 fewer egg tomorrow, and 1 fewer bird to potentially sell or slaughter. The morning's single discrepancy ripples outward, subtly tightening the margins of the days to come. The count is never just about today. It's the first domino in a chain of cause and effect that stretches through the week, a lesson you are learning in the most visceral way possible. With the immediate demands of breakfast and barter satisfied, the rhythm of the inn shifts from service to administration. Martin motions you over to the scarred trestle table. The wax tablet lies there, its surface a cloudy gray, etched with the ghosts of last week's figures. This is where the morning's sensory reality, the cluck of hens, the weight of eggs, the steam of pottage, transforms into record. It's avian bookkeeping, a bridge between the living stock and the cold arithmetic of survival. Martin picks up the stylus, a pointed bone tool, and with a practiced hand, smooths over a section of the wax with its flat end, erasing old, settled accounts. The surface becomes soft and receptive. The count is about to be made permanent, or as permanent as wax can be. He begins to incise marks. Not numbers, not as we know them. He uses a system of notches and symbols that you've learned to read. A vertical line for a healthy hen. A circle with a dot for a laying hen. A crossed line for the rooster. For the eggs, a series of small crescents, like tiny moons. He marks 14 vertical lines, one for each bird in the coop. Next to the line representing the old, bald hen, he scores a gentle X through it. Not a harsh gouge, but a definitive cancellation. She is now officially a loss. He adds 9 crescents in a neat row. Then, with a separate, deliberate motion, he etches a single, deep crescent off to the side, the egg reserved for the steward. It's a contingent asset, marked separately so as not to be accidentally spent. This is the inn's memory. Martin's own mind is formidable, but the wax tablet is the backup, the record that can be shown to a supplier, a steward, or a dubious traveler. It's also a planning tool. He points with the stylus tip. We're down 1 layer. The speckled pullet may be a loss. That's 2 fewer eggs a week, maybe 3. His voice is calm, analytical. The initial irritation over the theft, or whatever it was, has cooled into cold calculation. We need to replace them. At the market tomorrow, we look for point-of-lay pullets. Not chicks. We can't wait for chicks to grow. We trade the 2 old geese we're not using, and perhaps a firkin of the smaller ale. He's already planning the recovery, using the count's data to strategize a week ahead. The livestock are a dynamic portfolio, and he is rebalancing it. You watch as he then makes a series of broader, shallower marks in another corner of the tablet. These represent the day's outgoing spend from the coop's output. 2 crescents crossed out for the pottage, 4 for the merchant, 1 for the baker, 1 for the child. He doesn't mark the steward's egg, it's still in reserve. This is his profit and loss statement for the avian division of the inn. At a glance, he can see that the day's egg revenue, in the form of meals sold, favors earned, and goods acquired, has nearly matched production, with a small surplus held back. The loss of the hen is a capital depreciation, a hit to future production. A mainstream historical fact. While double-entry bookkeeping wouldn't formalize for centuries, medieval merchants and guilds kept meticulous records using tallies, notched sticks, and wax tablets like this, tracking debts and credits in a way that was sophisticated for its time. Martin is part of that continuum. He then does something that surprises you. He takes a small, sharp knife from his belt and carefully cuts a thin sliver from the edge of a wooden tally stick that sits with the tablet. This stick, marked with notches representing a larger debt or contract, is his version of a filing cabinet. He hands the sliver to you. For the baker, he says. His egg today against the loaf. This is his. This is a foil, a counterpart to a notch on the main stick. When the baker provides the next loaf, the transaction will be complete, and the sliver will be discarded, or perhaps matched back to the stick to prove the debt is settled. It's a physical, breakable record of a promise rooted in your chicken count. The egg has spawned a wooden token, a tangible piece of contractual law. Some historians studying these tally sticks have found that the practice was so trusted that the foils themselves sometimes became a form of currency, passed around to settle third-party debts, a literal breaking stock in the local economy. Your morning egg, in a roundabout way, could end up as a piece of wood in a carpenter's pocket, representing a debt for a repaired stool. The count's ramifications extend far beyond the coop. As Martin puts away the tablet and stylus, his planning session complete, you realize the count was just the first, raw data gathering step. This the translation into marks and plans, is where the innkeeper's true skill lies. Historians still argue whether these microeconomies were stifled by their lack of abstract money or liberated by their direct, goods-based clarity. Watching Martin, you see no stifling. You see a man using the clearest data he has, the number of chickens in his yard, to navigate a complex, precarious world with grimly elegant precision. The ledger is balanced, for now. Tomorrow's market will be the next test. The air in the inn holds a different charge the next morning. It's market day. The pre-dawn count you conduct is no longer just an internal audit, it's a strategic briefing. Every hen you number, every egg you retrieve, is being evaluated not just for its place in the day's meals, but for its potential role in the grand, chaotic theater of the weekly market. Martin is beside you again, but his silence is different, calculating, assessing. He eyes the flock like a general reviewing troops before a campaign. The speckled pullet with the bad foot is still lame. She pecks listlessly at the grain you scatter. She's been marked for liquidation. The 2 old geese by the pond, honking obliviously, are also on the list. They are assets being converted to raise capital for reinvestment. The count today determines your bargaining power. After securing the coop, you don't immediately head to the kitchen. Instead, you help Martin and a stable hand prepare the livestock for the short drive into the town. The 2 geese are bound by their feet, their protests loud and indignant. The lame pullet is placed in a covered wicker crate to keep her calm. You also load a small handcart with items from the inn's surplus. 2 firkins of the smaller, weaker ale. The good stuff stays for guests. A sack of apples from the orchard that are beginning to soften, and a bundle of goose feathers saved from last season's plucking. This is your war chest. And at the heart of its value is the intelligence from the morning's count. You know exactly what you have left behind, and exactly what gap you need to fill. The road to the market is a river of people and purpose. You join the flow, farmers with squealing pigs, women with baskets of cheese and butter, craftsmen with bundles of knives or pots. The air buzzes with gossip, shouted greetings, and the braying of animals. The market square, when you reach it, is a riot of color, smell, and sound. Pens of sheep bleat, stalls overflow with vegetables, and the tang of smoked fish mixes with the sweetness of honey and the pungent smell of tanned hides. Martin finds a spot near the livestock pens, a familiar patch of cobbles he rents weekly. This is where the inn's economy interfaces with the wider world. The selling is brisk. The geese, being large and loud, attract a butcher who haggles quickly for them, paying in a mix of small coin and a promise of offcuts for pottage. The lame pullet is a harder sell. Martin is honest about her foot. A sharp-eyed woman with a small holding buys her for a pittance, confident she can heal her or, failing that, get a meal from her. The ale, apples, and feathers are bartered away for things the inn needs. A new iron cooking pot, a sack of salt, some good quality candles. You watch the coins and goods change hands, each transaction a tiny adjustment to the inn's overall health. But this is all preamble. The real mission is procurement. Now, with coin in pouch and traded goods on the cart, you move to the poultry sellers. Here, the morning count back at the inn is your entire guide. You need point-of-lay pullets, birds on the cusp of egg production. Not chicks, which are a long-term investment the inn can't afford right now, and not older hens, which are a gamble on their remaining productivity. Martin moves through the cages and crates, his hands expert. He picks up birds, feeling their weight, checking their combs for health, spreading wings to look for mites. He is replacing a lost asset, the bald hen, and hedging against a future loss, the lame pullet, with precision. He haggles fiercely, using the coin from the geese and a bit of the salt as a sweetener. He acquires 2 robust-looking pullets, one russet, one black. The count back home will be restored to 15, and the age profile of the flock will be improved. Market regulations were strict, with official lookers or ale-conners appointed to check quality and measure, but for poultry, much relied on the buyer's eye. Some medieval manuals suggested checking the distance between a hen's pelvic bones to gauge its laying potential, a trick Martin likely knows. As you place the new pullets into your now empty crate, you realize the cycle is complete. Yesterday's loss has been quantified, assets have been liquidated, and replacement capital has been acquired. All of it stemmed from a single, empty space in the morning tally. Historians still argue whether medieval markets were truly efficient at price discovery or were hopelessly fragmented and local. Standing here, watching Martin pay for the new birds with a combination of coin, salt, and knowledge, you see efficiency of a very personal, direct kind. The market is his supply room, and the chicken count is his shopping list. The journey back to the inn is quieter, the cart heavier with new life and new tools. The ledger, you sense, is smiling. The satisfaction of a successful market day is a fleeting luxury. The 2 new pullets, now installed in a separate pen for observation, represent future eggs, not current security. That night, as a half-moon paints the inn yard in silvery blue and inky black, you find yourself taking a turn at the watch. This isn't a formal, patrolling guard duty. It's a stretch of wakefulness spent by the kitchen hearth, ears straining beyond the crackle of the dying fire for sounds that don't belong. The count you will conduct at dawn is not just a tally of what exists. It is a verdict on the security of the night. Every rustle, every snap of a twig in the woods beyond the fence, is a potential subtraction waiting to happen. The predators are out there, both 4-legged and 2. You learn the night's normal soundtrack first. The heavy breathing of the ox in the stable. The scuttle of mice in the thatch. The distant, mournful call of a fox, a sound that tightens your spine. That fox is a calculating thief, a master of silence. It could dig, its paws surprisingly deft, under the henhouse wall where the foundation stones meet the earth. A weasel is worse, a sliver of ferocious appetite that can slip through a gap the width of your thumb, kill in a frenzy, and sometimes drag its prey out bit by bit. You hold a cudgel across your knees, its weight both comfort and reminder. The protection of the flock is as physical as the count is abstract. A mainstream historical fact. The threat from wildlife was so constant that medieval manorial accounts often list payments for vermin such as foxes, polecats, and even sparrows, with bounties paid for their heads or tails, a crude form of pest control that acknowledged their direct impact on food stores. But the animal threats are almost simpler to comprehend than the human ones. The inn sleeps, but not everyone within it is truly at rest. A traveler with a gambling debt, a servant with a grievance, a wandering stranger who slipped in during the evening's bustle and found a shadowy corner. Any could see the coop as a solution to a private problem. You think of the missing bald hen, the single feather on the fence. The method was clean. Too clean for a fox? Perhaps. You listen for the soft crunch of a foot on gravel, the suppressed cough, the faint metallic whisper of a latch being tested. The inn's reputation hinges on being a safe haven. A known target for chicken thieves is an inn with a failing reputation. Martin would rather face a fox than a whisper campaign that says his yard is easy pickings. Some medieval bestiaries and folk beliefs held that weasels conceived through the ear and gave birth through the mouth, and that a hen's egg could be used as a charm to ward them off if buried at the coop's threshold. You don't believe it, but in the profound dark, the line between practical fear and superstitious remedy grows thin. You find yourself wishing you had such a charm. The reality is your ears, your eyes, and the cudgel. You make a silent, slow circuit of the yard, staying in the deep shadows. The henhouse is a darker lump against the night. You place your hand against its door. The pin is fast. You run your fingers along the bottom of the wall, feeling for fresh digging. The earth is packed firm, damp with dew. The longest hours are just before dawn, when the cold seeps into your bones and your eyelids grow heavy. This is when a predator, human or animal, might strike, counting on the weariness of the watch. You pinch your own arm to stay alert. You think of the count not as a list, but as a covenant between dusk and dawn. You promise to keep them safe. The dawn will reveal how well you kept that promise. Historians still argue whether the pervasive fear of theft and loss in the medieval period fostered a culture of deep communal trust within villages, as a necessary defense, or bred a constant, low-level paranoia. Sitting alone in the dark, the community asleep around you, you feel the latter. Trust is for the daylight. The night is for doubt, and for the grim responsibility of being the one who stands between the flock and the countless hungers of the dark. When the first true grey light finally bleeds into the eastern sky, and the rooster inside the coop stirs and lets out a tentative, sleep-roughened crow, the tension in your shoulders eases, just a fraction. The watch is over. The audit is about to begin. You walk to the coop, your footsteps loud in the crystalline quiet of the new day, and reach for the pin. The night has passed without alarm. But the count will have the final say. The pin lifts with a familiar, solid click. The door swings open on a scene of peaceful, feathery mundanity. The rooster greets the proper dawn with his full, throaty crow. The hens blink at the invading light, clucking softly as they hop down from their perches. You move through the morning ritual with a heightened sense of relief. The watch held. The fortress was not breached. 14 familiar birds, plus the 2 new pullets still quarantined in their pen, are all present, accounted for, and seemingly unharmed. The speckled pullet with the bad foot is still lame, but she's eating a little. You collect the eggs, 10 today, a good number. The normalcy of it is a reward in itself. The ledger from this morning will show stability, recovery. But the world of the inn does not run on a single, steady rhythm. A new pressure is already building on the horizon, one that turns the daily count from a matter of economics into a complex equation of faith, reputation, and community standing, the approach of a major feast day. Martin mentions it over the midday meal, a simple pottage made with the offcuts from the market butcher. St. John's Eve is next week, he says, not looking up from his bowl. We'll need a feast bird. The statement hangs in the air. It's not a question. The inn, as a pillar of the local community and a haven for travelers, is expected to mark the holiday. A feast bird means one of the plumpest hens or the old rooster, slaughtered, plucked, roasted, and served with whatever else can be scrounged, to be shared among the guests and perhaps a few local worthies. It's a loss leader of the most visceral kind. You sacrifice a capital asset, a living chicken, for a non-monetary return, enhanced reputation, guest loyalty, and the meeting of social obligation. Suddenly, the count you conduct each morning takes on a new, grim dimension. You're no longer just counting healthy layers, you're evaluating candidates for execution. That plump red hen who's such a reliable layer? She'd make a fine centerpiece. The older, slower layer whose egg production has dropped? She's the practical choice. The new rooster, if you had one to spare, would be traditional. You look at them differently now, weighing not just their daily output but their final, one-time yield of meat. Martin will make the decision based on a week's worth of counts. Which bird's continued life offers less value than its symbolic death on a feast day platter? It's a brutal cost-benefit analysis dressed in holiday finery. A mainstream historical fact, medieval feast days were central to the rhythm of life, breaking the monotony of labor and diet. For an innkeeper, providing a festive meal was both a social duty and a shrewd business move, attracting custom and allowing him to charge a premium for lodging during the holiday period. The chicken destined for the feast was, in many ways, a marketing expense. Its sacrifice would be public, its aroma a powerful advertisement of the inn's generosity and prosperity. The Count tells Martin how much prosperity he can actually afford to display. Some believe that the qualities of a bird could be transferred through its meat. Eating a quick, nervous bird might make you restless. Eating a slow, placid one might bring tranquility. You wonder, as you scatter grain for the flock, if Martin considers the temperament of his birds when choosing the feast fowl. Should the inn's holiday atmosphere be lively or peaceful? It's a fringe thought, but it underscores how deeply intertwined the living bird is with the human world around it. It is food, symbol, and even potential medicine. For the next several days, your morning count is a briefing for a coming execution. You report not just numbers, but condition. The red hen is still the heaviest, you might say. Or, the older grey one laid only 2 eggs this week. Martin listens, his face giving nothing away. Historians still argue whether the medieval relationship with animals was purely utilitarian or held threads of what we might call sentiment or individual recognition. Watching Martin, you see the utilitarian framework is dominant. Yet, there's a certain respect in his careful selection. He will not waste a prime layer for a momentary show. He will choose the bird whose sacrifice best balances the ledgers of protein and prestige. The count is the data that guides this ceremonial cull. As St. John's Eve draws nearer, the coop, unbeknownst to its inhabitants, becomes a holding pen for a condemned creature. Your morning ritual is now a death watch, and each cluck, each scratched seed, is part of a final, feathery audit. The feast day pressure is still a week away, a simmering concern on the back burner of the inn's daily grind. But another, more immediate form of accounting descends with the clatter of hooves and the jingle of fine harnesses. The Lord Steward has come for his annual tithe. This isn't a market transaction or a communal feast. This is power, distilled into a man with a writ and a bored expression, sitting at Martin's best table. Suddenly, the chicken count isn't just an internal tool or a social calculator. It's a tax document, and its accuracy has political consequences. The steward, a thin man with ink-stained fingers, unrolls a scrap of parchment, the rental agreement for the inn's land, which Martin holds from the local lord. Part of the rent is paid in kind. And in kind very often means poultry. Martin stands respectfully, but his posture is rigid. You are summoned to provide testimony, not with words, but with facts on the wing. The steward sips from a cup of Martin's best ale, provided free, of course, as an unavoidable operational cost of the visit. The customary due is 6 hens, or the equivalent in fowl, the steward recites, his voice monotone. Or a monetary composition, at the rate set by the manor court. He looks at Martin. What is the state of your flock, innkeeper? This is it. The morning's count, and the cumulative record of the wax tablet, are about to be tested by external authority. Martin gives a concise report. He doesn't inflate the numbers. An inflated number might lead to a higher assessment next year. He doesn't overly diminish them, that could look like evasion. He states the number of laying hens, the age of the rooster, the presence of new pullets. He mentions the loss of the bald hen to theft, a casualty that he hopes might earn a sliver of leniency, or at least register as a truth. The steward listens, his eyes occasionally flicking to you, as if checking Martin's story against the face of his apprentice. You keep your expression blank, a living ledger confirming the keeper's words. Then comes the negotiation, a delicate dance of obligation and survival. Martin offers the hens. But he offers the older ones, the ones past peak laying. The steward, no fool, demands birds of a certain age and health. The 6 best hens, is the traditional phrase. Martin counters, suggesting a composition, 3 good hens and a sum of silver pennies, arguing that to take 6 of his best would cripple the inn's ability to serve travelers, and thus reduce its profits, and thus reduce the Lord's future tax revenues from it. It's high-stakes economics, and the foundational data for all of it is the count you've been performing every sunrise. A mainstream historical fact, tithes and rents in kind were a persistent feature of the medieval economy, often resented for their inflexibility, especially in a bad year. The struggle between Martin and the steward is a microcosm of that eternal tension between the producer and the extracting authority. Some manor court records show disputes where tenants were accused of hiding their best animals from the assessor by painting them with mud or soot to make them look sickly, or swapping them with a neighbor's inferior stock for the day. You glance at the coop, wondering if such a thought has ever crossed Martin's mind. Probably. But the steward is experienced. He will likely demand to see the flock himself. The count you provided is the opening bid in a tangible negotiation over living property. Finally, a deal is struck. 4 hens, of the steward's choosing, but not the absolute best, and a silver penny. Martin's shoulders slump slightly in relief, not from the cost, but from the settled certainty of it. The steward makes a note on his parchment. The selected hens will be taken later. As the steward departs, his post slightly heavier and his duty discharged, Martin lets out a long, slow breath. The encounter is over. The flock is diminished, but the terms were survivable. Historians still argue whether this manorial system of extraction was a parasitic drain on the productive economy or a form of primitive, if uneven, social contract providing land and protection in return. Watching Martin slowly roll up his own wax tablet, you see only the drain, the tangible reduction of his carefully managed assets based on a power dynamic, not a fair trade. The morning count has now fulfilled its most solemn duty. It has been audited by the state, and found sufficient. The coop will be quieter tonight, by 4 voices. And tomorrow's count will begin anew, on a smaller, slightly poorer flock. The departure of the steward and 4 of your best layers leaves a palpable quiet in the yard. The coop feels emptier, the morning cacophony slightly diminished. The count the next day is a sobering affair, 10 mature birds now, plus the 2 new pullets. The ledger has been forcibly adjusted by a higher power. Yet, life at the inn, that great beast of commerce and chatter, grinds on. Your duties take you to the stable that evening, mucking out stalls and laying fresh hay for the guests' horses. It's here, in the earthy, ammoniac gloom lit by a single horn lantern, that you become an accidental auditor of a different kind. 2 travelers, a cloth merchant from the north and a journeyman mason heading to a cathedral worksite, are bedding down their own nag and a pack mule. They talk, assuming the stable boy, is part of the furniture, deaf to their gossip. A good inn, this, the mason says, rubbing down his horse's flank with a twist of straw. The pottage had a bit of meat in it yesterday. Not just gristle. The merchant snorts, loosening a girth strap. Aye, but did you see the size of the flock? Smaller than I'd expect for a house this busy. The steward was here yesterday. Took his due, I'll wager. Leaves them lean. Makes you think, the mason muses. My cousin keeps an alehouse on the London road. He says he's started buying eggs from a nearby nunnery. Steadier supply, he says. The sisters keep a better count than any farmer's wife. You freeze, a forkful of soiled straw held in midair. This is the outside world leaking in, a chance to benchmark Martin's operation against others. The merchant chuckles. Count? It's all a gamble. I was at an inn in Flanders where the keeper kept his chickens inside at night, in a pen right by the kitchen hearth. Lost a few to a careless cook's foot, he said, but never a one to foxes or thieves. The idea is startling, bringing the flock into the very heart of the inn. The smell, the noise, the filth. Yet, the logic is undeniable. You think of your lonely night watch, the fear of the fox. An indoor coop. It's a radical rethink of the problem the count exists to monitor. They continue, their talk shifting to the price of wool, but your mind is reeling. A nunnery with a reputably disciplined egg supply chain. A Flemish inn that nullified the predator threat entirely. These are data points, innovations born from the same daily struggle you and Martin face. Their morning counts, their ledger marks, their security worries, they are all variations on your theme. Some monastic accounts show incredibly detailed records of egg production, sometimes used to enforce dietary rules. No eggs in Lent, except for the sick or elderly, proving that religious institutions could be just as meticulously focused on avian accounting as any profit-driven innkeeper. You finish your work silently, your mind ahwhirl. Later, as you bank the kitchen fire for the night, you mention the Flemish idea to Martin, couching it as something you overheard. He pauses, a loaf of bread in his hand. He looks towards the back door, towards the distant coop. Inside, he grunts. And where would you have me put them? In the guests' beds? The stink would drive trade to the goat down the road before the week was out. He dismisses it, but you see a flicker in his eyes, not of consideration for the idea, but of recognition. Recognition that his methods are not the only methods. That the challenge of the count is a universal puzzle, solved in different ways in different places. Historians still argue whether medieval technological and administrative innovations spread primarily through such casual traveler gossip along trade routes, or through formal apprenticeships and written manuals. In this moment, leaning on a broom in a smoky kitchen, you are a living conduit for that very spread of ideas, however rudimentary. The conversation in the stable fades, but its impression remains. The inn is not an island. Your daily ritual with the chickens is part of a vast, informal network of similar rituals happening in farmyards, monasteries, and yes, even Flemish inns across Christendom. Each count is a local solution to a universal equation of hunger and security. As you climb to your attic pallet, you realize the count connects you not just to Martin's ledger, but to a whole, unseen world of people just like you, staring at their own feathered assets at dawn, wondering how to make the numbers add up for one more day. Weeks turn, marked by the relentless rhythm of the count. The feast day comes and goes. The older grey hen met her fate, providing a memorable meal that drew praise from guests and locals alike. The 2 new pullets have begun to lay, their small, first eggs a welcome sight in the nesting boxes, slowly filling the gap left by the steward's tithe. You've stood watch on countless cold nights, chased off a fox once with a well-thrown stone and a shout, and have become so adept at the morning tally you could likely do it in your sleep. The ritual has become ingrained, a part of you as natural as breathing. But on this particular morning, as you stand in the coop with the familiar smells and sounds, a strange meta-awareness settles over you. You're not just counting chickens. You're participating in a legacy. Think about it. This simple act, ensuring the living stock matches the expected number, is a foundational kernel of so much we take for granted. Hospitality? It begins here. You cannot offer a traveler an egg for breakfast if you don't know how many eggs you have. The entire concept of a menu, of planning for guests, is predicated on this inventory. The inn's reputation for reliability, for not promising what it can't provide, is built on the accuracy of your dawn assessment. Accounting? This is its grassy, muddy root. Double-entry bookkeeping in Renaissance Italy is a magnificent, abstract cathedral of numbers. But its foundation is the same impulse that makes Martin score a line in wax for a hen and an X through it when it's gone. The need to track what you have, what you've lost, and what you're owed. Your morning count is primitive capitalism in a woolen tunic. And what of our relationship with food? The modern world is one of abstraction. You buy a plastic-wrapped chicken breast, utterly divorced from the life that produced it. But here, the connection is direct, intimate, and often brutal. You know the bird that laid your breakfast egg. You noted its limp, you watched it peck in the yard. You will later decide, based on its productivity, whether it lives to see another season or ends up in the pot. This isn't cruelty, it's profound responsibility. The count forces that responsibility upon you every single day. You are not a consumer, you are a custodian. A mainstream historical fact. The shift from this kind of direct, small-scale husbandry to larger, more impersonal agricultural systems was one of the most significant, if slow-moving, economic transitions of the late medieval and early modern periods, fundamentally changing how people interacted with their food sources. As you watch the red hen dust bathing in a patch of sun, some modern proponents of mindful eating or the local food movement strive desperately to recapture this lost connection, to know the name of the farmer who grew their lettuce. You smile, a little grimly. You have that connection. It's etched in callous, dawn wake-ups, and the grim calculus of the feast day selection. It's a connection built less on romance than on necessity and numbers. Historians still argue whether this pre-industrial intimacy with food production led to a greater respect for resources or simply a hardened pragmatism that saw animals solely as utilities. From your vantage point, it's both. You respect the flock because your survival is tied to it. You are pragmatic because sentiment won't fill a guest's belly or pay the steward. You finish the count. 16 birds now, a healthy number. 12 eggs. The ledger is strong. As you walk back to the kitchen, basket in hand, you see the inn not just as a building, but as a system, a delicate, human-engineered ecosystem designed to turn grain, water, and careful observation into shelter, warmth, and sustenance. The chicken count is the daily diagnostic of that system's health. It's a ritual that has persisted in one form or another for millennia, and its core logic, check your assets, note your losses, plan accordingly, echoes in every restaurant's kitchen inventory, every hotel's minibar check, every spreadsheet in a modern business. The tools have changed from wax and stylus to tablets and cloud servers, but the essential question remains the same. What do we have today, and how do we make it last? The answer, for now, is in your basket, still warm from the hen. The final tally of the morning is complete, the eggs distributed, the day's plans set in motion by Martin's silent calculations. But the significance of the ritual extends its tendrils far beyond the coop and the kitchen, anchoring the inn's very identity in the wider medieval world. Think of the inn not just as a business, but as a node. A point where roads, goods, news, and people intersect. In a time of slow travel and localized danger, the inn is a beacon of fragile order. And the daily chicken count, absurd as it may sound, is a cornerstone of that order. Consider commerce. The inn is a commercial hub. Farmers come to sell their surplus to the keeper. Traveling merchants use it as a base. The reliability of its fare, the fact that you can, more often than not, get an egg or a bit of fowl, makes it a predictable node in an unpredictable world. That reliability is born from the count. Without it, Martin is guessing. Guessing leads to shortage. Shortage leads to disappointment. Disappointment leads to travelers choosing a different stop next time. The count enables the inn to function as a micromarket, a place where the local economy of eggs and fowl is concentrated and redistributed via stew pots and trading gestures. The steady rhythm of its provisioning, dictated by the morning numbers, makes it a trusted economic actor. Then there's news. The inn is a sieve for gossip, rumor, and information from distant shires. People talk over their pottage, their ale, their plates of roasted hen. The stories of battles, of papal decrees, of a bad harvest in the south, all flow through this hall. But the inn's ability to host that conversation, to be that clearinghouse, depends on its fundamental stability. A place struggling to feed its guests, its chickens perpetually raided by foxes or thieves, becomes a place of scarcity and worry, not lively exchange. The count is a daily reaffirmation of stability. It says, "We have our house in order." Here, you can spare the mental energy to listen and to tell. It fosters the environment where information, that most precious medieval commodity, can be traded as freely as the eggs from your basket. And lastly, there's simple, human stability. For the weary pilgrim, the frightened family fleeing a feud, the merchant caught in a storm, the sight of a well-kept yard, the sound of contented chickens, the taste of a fresh egg, these are profound comforts. They are signs of a world that still functions, of a corner of civilization holding firm against the entropy of the road, the forest, and the harshness of the age. The meticulous care embodied by the count translates into a psychological sanctuary. It whispers that here, things are measured, accounted for, and protected. In a precarious world, that whisper is worth more than gold. Some medieval chronicles and travelers' tales subtly judge the quality of an inn or a hospital by the state of its livestock and gardens. A well-tended henhouse was a proxy for a well-tended guest. The count, therefore, wasn't just internal data. It was a piece of public relations, a silent testament to the keeper's competence visible to any discerning eye that glanced into the yard. Historians still argue whether the medieval inn was primarily a force for societal cohesion, connecting disparate places and people, or if it was merely a reflection of the fragmented, localized nature of the world, offering only tiny, isolated pockets of order. From where you stand, shaking grain from your tunic, it's clearly both. It is a fragile bubble of cohesion, and its fragility is precisely why the count is so sacred. The ritual is a spell against chaos, repeated each dawn to ensure the bubble does not pop. The chickens, in their oblivious, clucking way, are the unwitting guardians of the gate, and your daily reckoning is the key that keeps it locked. The sun is fully over the forest now, its pale gold light washing the yard clean of shadows. The mystery of the missing bald hen is a cold thread, never solved, just absorbed into the fabric of losses that any venture accumulates over time. The new pullets are fully integrated, their eggs now part of the expected yield. The ledger in Martin's head, and on his wax tablet, has found a new equilibrium. You've returned the basket to the kitchen, the day's first and most critical duty discharged. As you step back into the main hall, now alive with the breaking of fast and the plans of travelers, the pre-dawn world of the count feels both distant and intimately close, the silent engine humming beneath the day's noise. You take a moment, leaning against the cool stone of the hearth, and watch. The pilgrim dipping his bread into his pottage. That meal was possible because you knew how many eggs could be spared to thicken it. The merchant consulting a map with his clerk. He chose this inn, perhaps unconsciously, because its reputation for reliable provision preceded it, a reputation built on 10,000 morning counts. The local woman who came to deliver fresh herbs and left with a promise of feathers for a new pillow. That exchange was brokered on the surplus identified by your tally. The entire intricate dance of sustenance and society that is the medieval inn unfolds from that single, simple, feather-scattered starting point. From coop to keep, the line is direct. The health of the flock dictates the health of the kitchen. The health of the kitchen secures the satisfaction of the guests. The satisfaction of the guests builds the reputation of the house. The reputation of the house fills the beds and the stable, which fills the coffers, which allows for repairs, for better ale, for a new coat of limewash on the walls, for the security and prosperity of the keeper and all who depend on him. It is a chain of causality as delicate and as strong as iron links. And the first link, forged each day in the chill silence before dawn, is the act of looking, of numbering, of knowing. It is an act of faith in order, a defiance against the entropy of a world where things, hens, coins, luck, have a tendency to disappear. You see Martin now, moving through the hall with a tankard of ale for a departing guest, his face no longer the grim auditor of the coop but the genial host. Both are the same man. The Count allows the hospitality. The vigilance enables the warmth. The pragmatic assessment of living assets makes possible the generosity of a feast day. It is all one system. And you are part of it. Your chilled fingers, the scent of straw that will cling to your tunic all day, the specific weight of 9 eggs versus 10 in a basket. These are the sensory signatures of your role in holding this tiny, vibrant, fragile world together. The road outside beckons to the travelers, a ribbon of uncertainty. But here, within the walls of the inn, for today at least, the numbers have all added up. The count is complete. The day can truly begin. Now, let that image soften at the edges, like a page of an old manuscript fading into the vellum. The cluck of the hens mellows into a distant, rhythmic sound, no louder than the beat of your own heart. The smell of straw and damp earth blends with the imagined scent of the linen on your pillow. The intricate, pressing weight of Martin's ledger, the sharp tang of morning anxiety, it all dissolves, leaving only the quiet satisfaction of a task seen through, a duty faithfully discharged. That world of meticulous counts and feathery fortunes is receding now, slipping back into the gentle past where it rests, a testament to the quiet, daily order that built civilizations from the ground up, one egg, one hen, one dawn at a time. Your own vigilance can ease. The watch is over. The coop is secure, the inn is at peace, and the story is told. Let the deep, quiet dark beyond your eyelids become as comforting as the thatch over the sleeping flock, knowing that all is accounted for, all is well. Breathe out. Let go. And drift into a sleep as deep and dreamless as a medieval night after a long, honest day's work.